Hey everyone, and welcome to month 6 of our 12-month chess improvement challenge. After this month, we'll officially be halfway done with this challenge. Can you believe it? I almost can't. I hope you've been seeing some significant improvement in how you're playing. Last month, we focused on pattern recognition by drilling a bunch of easy tactics. As I mentioned then, whatever drills you found worked to get those easy puzzle reps in, you can continue to use that moving forward in your regular study routine. Easy puzzles make a great warm-up before you start playing for the day, and they help to keep your mind sharp if you're able to do them consistently. This month we're going to shift gears and focus on something that you can really only train when you're playing games, and that's time management. Time is a very important part of chess, whether you have 90 minutes on the clock or 30 seconds. I've heard people say that, even if I lose on time, if I was winning on the board, then technically it was still kind of a win for me. No, that is not the way to think. All online games and all tournament games are timed for a reason, and we as chess players need to learn to work with the clock the same way that we work with our pieces. In timed chess, the clock matters just as much as the position, sometimes more. A lot of games, even at the elite level, like in the most recent candidates tournament, are kind of decided on the clock. So with all that said, it's worth spending a month whipping your time management skills into shape. I'm splitting this month's activities into two parts, one for players who tend to play too fast and the other for players who tend to play too slow. We're going to try and meet in the middle, and I would recommend actually watching both parts no matter which one you seem to identify with more, because honestly, we've all been in both camps, sometimes in the same game. So starting off with players who generally feel like they like to play a little too fast. If this is you and you ever go and play some over-the-board tournaments, you might find that you're among the first games to finish of the entire round, and then you kind of have to wait around for a few hours for the next round to start. Sometimes that's fine, it just means that, you won early or, something was decided in the opening, but a lot of times that means that you could afford to slow down and think a little bit more. When you play online, you might find that you are often pressuring your opponent on the clock, but you might also be missing things. If you only ever just play the first move that comes to mind, you might be missing your opponent's defensive resources or attacking resources, or you might be missing something even better that you could play. There's a piece of advice that coaches often tell their particularly young students, which is to sit on their hands. And listen, sometimes even I have to do that in tournaments. Sometimes you see a really exciting move and you're so excited about it that somehow it's suddenly on the board before you even realize that your hand has picked up and moved the piece. You gotta learn to slow yourself down and make sure that your move actually works. Also, just because your opponent is playing fast doesn't mean that you have to match their speed. Keep up with them within reason, but especially in longer games, feel free to take the time that you need. If they're playing too fast and miss something, that's on them. You calculate your moves that you're going to play. This is a lot about training your self-talk, and during the game, it can be helpful to have a bit of a mental checklist. Of course, you won't go through it on every move, that's just impossible, but there'll usually be a few moments like in the middle game where you kind of intuit that this is a critical moment that I need to think about. My most simplified version of this checklist is just one question, which is, if I play this move that I'm thinking about, what is the most annoying thing that my opponent could do in response? Often that annoying move is a check from your opponent. Sometimes, like if you're considering sacrificing a piece to open up the pawns around your opponent's king, the most annoying move might actually be if your opponent just captured that piece. And then you have to ask yourself, well, what comes next? If you can look just one move past what you initially see, that is often enough to slow yourself down and make sure that you are finding every resource that your opponent possibly has. If it helps, after you've officially decided what move you're going to play, you can force yourself to wait a certain amount of time before actually putting the move on the board. This obviously works better in like classical chess, where you can afford to spend 30 seconds or a minute double checking everything before you actually play the move. So sit on your hands until then. Ask yourself, what's the most annoying thing my opponent could do, and you will find yourself slowing way down. Now, for those of us who tend to move too slowly, this is often a case of decision paralysis. You choose 2 or 3 candidate moves and then spend a ton of time just talking yourself in circles without actually concretely calculating them out, and you might even start expanding your net even wider and looking for other possible moves without actually going down the lines of the moves that you've initially chosen. This is honestly my major issue in time management in chess too, so I'm kind of speaking to myself here. I need to get my pieces in the game. I have 30 seconds. Okay, this is fine. Just this. Okay, can I do this, 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 this? This takes. No. Ah, that one's hanging. Oh my gosh, I have 20 seconds. Wait. Dude, I was so close. Are you kidding me? One solution to this is to narrow your focus and then be really strict with yourself about your thought process. That means choosing just 2 candidate moves, maybe 3 depending on the position or if the first 2 don't work, and then actually calculating them out all the way to the end. When you're calculating, the end of a sequence usually means that there are no more significant forcing moves in the ending position that you're visualizing, so no more checks or captures. Then you just have to evaluate each of those ending positions and decide which one is better. For the more advanced players, you might be starting with just those 2 candidate moves, but of course, there are probably going to be multiple branches for each. If there's just one branch or one ending sequence that is bad for you, you can discard the move that led to that sequence. There's no use wasting time trying to make it work. If both moves seem to kind of work, I've gone so far as to start making a pros and cons list in my head for each one. Like maybe a pro would be that at the end of a sequence, I get an outpost knight, but on the other side, the con is that my king is exposed. Or the pro might be that I'm getting a strong attack, but the con is that I'm like sacrificing a piece for 2 pawns, and is that material deficit worth it? If you can really structure your thought process like this, it can help lead you to the best decision that you can make faster. And once you've made that decision, you can double check it one more time and then just move. Another way to speed up your time management might be to set yourself a certain amount of time that you're allowed to use for each move or even each phase of the game. The opening should generally go the fastest because you should know your openings. We worked on that a couple months ago. And the middle game and the end game is where you should allow yourself more time because you're going to have those positions where you need that additional time to think. Going all the way back to month 1, analyzing your games can actually help you with time management too. Online, you can check your time usage on each move to see the points in the game where it might deviate from the rest of your regularly, scheduled moves. Over the board, you are allowed to write down the clock time after your move, which can help you with accountability. These are mostly tips for rapid and classical, but if you play a lot of speed chess like Blitz and Bullet, obviously the clock becomes an even bigger weapon. And one final tip I have to speed up your thought process there is to just practice making good enough moves. These are just fast and simple moves that are good enough to hold your position together and just not lose. You shouldn't be wasting time calculating these long, complex sequences when you only have a few minutes on the clock. Just keep it simple and try to keep your clock time as close as possible to your opponent's. Remember, no matter which time control you're playing, the clock, when utilized correctly, can be as valuable as a piece or 2, and in many cases, it really decides the game. So this month, let's buckle down, play some games, and have an intense focus on that time management. Once we've developed good habits in that aspect of the game, it'll be easier going forward to focus on other parts of our thought process in-game. A lot of these next 6 challenges will involve more of that mental aspect, so like what you should be focusing on and thinking about during the actual game. So if this is interesting to you, or you're keeping up with these challenges, or you want to continue following along, be sure to hit subscribe. Let me know down in the comments whether you tend to play too fast or too slow, and your own tips for good time management. We always love to share information around here. And with that, I will see you soon.